Hello, Rooted Sky Homestead. Out enjoying a beautiful spring day, foraging magnolia buds. Woo! I'm so excited. Look at this beauty. She is bursting. So much abundance. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this tree to just explode with these beautiful blooms. Aren't these beautiful? So, as you can see, I am not harvesting the open flowers. I'm going more for the buds, this one. And I will show you what my plan is when I get back to the homestead. But for right now, I'm just going to continue harvesting the ones that are ready, and we will continue from there. Hi there, Bridget of Rooted Sky Homestead, and I am so excited to share this with you. Today, I am making a new to me recipe, and maybe it's new to you too. So, what am I talking about? These beauties, magnolia. So today we're going to be making magnolia petals, and we're pickling them. This is to be used as a garnish. It can also be used medicinally. We'll get into that in a little bit here, but first, let's get peeling. Okay. So the important thing to know here is that we're taking the petals and we are actually removing them off of this inner part here. Now, I can't recall if this is called a stigma or a stamen. I think it's a stigma. I'm not very good with botanical terms, but this beautiful, I think of it as a crown. Okay, so these we will not be eating, but we will be using all of the petals. Now, if you want, there's a couple different ways. You know, I've been reading online. This is my first season working with magnolia. I've been appreciating magnolias for a long, long time. As a photographer, they're very visually appealing to me. Now that I'm getting into more of the herbal, wild food foraging, I'm seeing magnolia in a totally different light. So another thing that you could do if you wanted to leave these buds whole, okay, is you could just very gently open it and take it out. Let's see here. Just kind of pop it out. See if it'll, nope, they won't stay whole. There has to be a trick here, guys. This is a Pinterest fail right now, but okay. So I'm doing it with the petals peeled, primarily because I want to use this as a garnish for different recipes. It has, from what I'm understanding, it's similar to ginger, pickled ginger. So if you like sushi, this would be a really nice addition to that type of meal. It can also go on top of salads. If you do any type of rice dishes, you could chop it up and add it as, you know, a unique flavor profile, something that most of us aren't used to eating, which is why I love wild foraging. This doesn't taste like any other vegetable that you would get at the store right now, right? That's one of the benefits of going out of doors and meeting your local bioregion, see what grows there and how it can be used in your own life. Now, magnolia, this was really exciting to me because when I forage by things that call my attention. So each season is different for me. When I first began learning about spring plants, I was really attracted to coltsfoot. Now I don't eat coltsfoot that much. And then I was attracted to dandelion, and I ate a ton of dandelions. Now I'm not really that interested in them this year. For me, it's been magnolia, and I'm going to record another video. I'm going to make dead nettle pesto. And Dead nettle has been getting my attention since the very first leaves broke through the surface. It turns out that my body has needed a lot of the nutrients that are in the dead nettle, and the same with magnolia. So magnolia is really good for respiratory issues. It can help with anxiety. It can also help with cognitive function. So if you've been feeling a little foggy, fogginess tends to be linked with inflammation. This is an anti-inflammatory. I'm guessing, and I haven't looked into this, but my hunch is that you could probably make a really beautiful medicinal tincture from magnolia, and that might be something that I'll look into and possibly try this season. We'll see. Tinctures have a longer shelf life than what we're doing right now with the pickling. One thing to be aware of with magnolia is that the petals are very delicate, and the harder you handle them, the quicker they bruise. So I like to think of this as a mindful depettaling, where we're going slow and steady the whole time to really preserve the beauty. I mean, there's so many different hues of pink in magnolia. They're really beautiful. And then the interior is white. Kind of looks like a tongue, doesn't it? Play with your food, friends. Play with your food. See what I mean? This one was at the bottom of the basket and it bruised. It's still perfectly okay to pickle and eat, but it just doesn't look as pretty. Now, here, this is the base. This is where the bud actually comes through. And these, if you're walking along and you see a bunch of magnolia flowers in bloom, you'll notice these little fuzzy grayish, I think of them as pantaloons. They remind me of little pants. That's how the bud actually grows. It doesn't grow from that part, but that's what it pushes through to bloom. Here's another one. So we're not going to be pickling that. That needs to come off. Just toss it to the side there. It can go in the compost pile. Okay, so we're just going to finish up depetaling all of these beauties and get on with the pickling. We're getting there. I'm almost done. And, you know, a couple things that came to mind is I was sharing that I eat and harvest and forage things that I am physically attracted to each season. And the reason I do that is because my body isn't meant to eat the same thing every single day. And just because I have access to pretty much anything I want throughout the year does not mean that that is what the nutrients that my body's needing seasonally. So I pay attention year to year to see what do I really need. The fun part about that is, you know, as I said, I've been looking at magnolias in bloom for many, many years. I love taking photographs of them, but I've never been interested in learning if it was edible until this season. And I have been experiencing a lot of congestion in my lower lungs. I notice that when I am out hiking and I'm on a steep incline, I can really feel there's like a congestion way down deep in my lungs. And guess what? Magnolia is really good for the lungs. I also have had inflammation, and magnolia is really good for inflammation. And I've mostly noticed it when I'm trying to do my brain games. My recall is a little slow right now, and that's one of the things that magnolia flowers are known for, is helping with cognitive function. So I'm really excited to see what I notice when I begin consuming this. Now, you can eat the leaves fresh. You can put them on tops of salads. You could just have a little salad of magnolia. I don't believe that it has a laxative effect. Some wild edibles do, so you want to, be cautious of how many you eat. But I like to think of this as an exercise of really listening to what your body is asking for, not the mouth. right? So often the mouth can have a lot of different interests, and the body really doesn't want to process that. So the other thing that I wanted to share is in your area, depending on where you're at, you may have these beautiful pink magnolia, or you may have the white. Okay, you can see the size difference here. They're both edible. They're both incredibly fragrant. This one is a little muskier, and this one is more floral. So I'm going to do a pickling of the white ones only, just to see what the flavor profile is. That's more of a curiosity of mine than a medicinal need for my body's well-being. It's just more of like, I wonder how these two taste. Okay, now the other fun thing to keep in mind is using what you have on hand. This specific recipe, you know, some of you may recall I'm pretty new to canning and pickling, and I'm used to using white vinegar and apple cider vinegar. This recipe specifically calls for rice wine. Now, I looked into it, and you can use apple cider as a substitute. So if you only have apple cider and you don't have the ability or interest to run out and get rice wine vinegar, I totally get that. And I was conflicted because I really didn't want to go and get the rice wine, but I thought, this is my first time ever trying these. I really want to see what the flavor profile is with the rice wine. And the majority of the articles I read, they use the rice wine because it's a milder vinegar. My hunch is that you could probably cut back on apple cider vinegar just a little bit. Since this is a quick pickling, you could probably add a little bit of purified water to just, you know, kind of dilute it and cut back the acid. That's my hunch. I don't know if that would be good for the pickling process, but you know, experimentation is the name of the game, right? Our ancestors didn't have a local grocery store on hand, so they used what they had and they did the best that they could with what they had. And so I like to challenge myself to that most of the time. But like I said, this time I went with it, and I went to the store and got rice wine vinegar. And I was happy to learn that there's a couple different kinds on the market now, because I haven't used it in a long time. And some of them actually don't have sugar or salt, which was a nice option, and that's what I got. I got the unseasoned rice wine vinegar. All right, we're on our last pink one here, and now we're going to get on to making the brine. All right, we're back. So we're going to use sodium-free, sugar-free rice wine vinegar. It'll be 2 cups of rice wine vinegar, which if you have a 12-ounce fluid bottle, will just be a little over a cup. Takes us to, there we go, 1.5. Now, this is a pretty nice bottle. I like it. It'll be great for small bouquets, or I was thinking about doing rose clippings to propagate some new rose bushes in the yard. So you can use it. It has a nice long neck, thin neck. All right, we're at 2 cups. Okay, this is 1 teaspoon of sugar and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, I doubled the recipe, which is why I used 2 cups of rice wine vinegar, and I'm now using 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, the recipe called for 1 clove of garlic. I don't have fresh garlic on hand right now, which I was pretty surprised by, but I am going to use dried minced onion. we'll try it and see how it works with this experiment. This is 2 teaspoons of dry minced onion as opposed to the 1 clove of garlic, but it would be doubled. The recipe I'm using also calls for star anise. I actually broke up the star anise and I'm going to put just a few pieces, these individual pieces, into each jar, okay, because it's a pretty strong spice and I don't want to overpower the delicate nature of these magnolia petals. So I'm only going to put about 2 of the star anise petals to each 8-ounce jar. I'm also using some home dried orange peels. So we get organic oranges that I wash really well, and then I save the peels and I dry them out. And I'm going to add a few orange peels only to half of my jars because I'm just curious how it would taste. It just seems like it would be a nice complement to this Asian flair. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to start packing the jars with the petals, and I'm going to keep an eye on this because I want it to everything to dissolve, but I don't want it to be super bubbling. I just want it to be nice and warm and make sure that all the sugar has dissolved. So I want to try this and I want you to be with me. This is my first time ever tasting these. Okay. The texture is fantastic. Can you see that? I mean, they're nice and thick. It has a really good texture. More flavor at the base, kind of like an artichoke. It doesn't taste like an artichoke, but it has more flavor towards the base of the leaf, like an artichoke. Really unique. Kind of gingery. Definitely floral. A little bit of a cucumber texture, that mucilaginous, just a little bit. A little hint of a bitter carrot. You know when carrots just aren't super sweet? That's kind of what it reminds me of. Really good though. Lots going on in this one petal. So I'm excited to get these pickled for, yeah, to have on all kinds of different things to experiment with. Okay, so here we go. You can see I've got them all packed in there really nicely. And now I'm going to add in the orange peel to 2 of them. So I'm going to put 3 of the peels. Again, subtle, subtle, subtle additions. I really don't want to deter or distract from what these magnolias already have going on. All right, and then I'm going to put in 3 of the star anise petals in only 2 of the jars. All right, the brine is ready. Let's get all of these together and let the marriage begin. All right, so here's the fun thing about recipes and paying attention. Which, you know, I think that you're starting to learn my style here, and sometimes that's not on the forefront of my mind. I didn't make enough brine to fill the jars, so I'm going to go back and do everything that I just shared again to get these other 2 jars filled. I'm going to double it. So it'll be 2 cups of the rice wine vinegar, 2 teaspoons of sugar and salt, and 2 teaspoons of minced onion. So stay tuned. All right, we're on the home stretch here. So I'm just going to dry the tops. It smells incredible. Okay, I'm just drying the tops. Closing them up. Now these are going to need a few days in the refrigerator. It's going to stay in the fridge the whole time. about 3 days before you start utilizing them, and I think up to 6 to 12 weeks in the fridge. So, you know, always do that internal test when you open it. Make sure you look at it and there's no mold and it doesn't have a funky smell. And then, you know, check in with yourself. Is this still good for me to eat? So, bon appetit. Our first time having pickled magnolia petals. Pickled magnolia petals. Say that 5 times fast. Bye.